Thank you for having me, brother. We've been trying to do this for a long time. Glad we're finally together.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to be my lead in because I know you sort of swore off doing any podcast and presentations, and really in the last 4 or 5 years, and I probably have at least had one or two requests per year. We've been friends for a long time, and to kind of set the scene, we ran into each other at the last tour event. We were both coaching at RSM, and you sit down beside me in the locker room and you go, "It's time." And I'm like, "Don't tease me. Don't tell me that." And like, so I'm so honored to have you on the podcast. So I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I've had a boatload of requests to do these things, and I'm going to make some people mad by doing this one.
Yeah,
But
that's the goal, right? I mean, that's
I've made a lot of people mad in the last 15 years. So
that's okay. Yeah, we've grown together through our when we first met in probably 2008, 2009 when social media and Twitter started, and we can kind of talk about that. And we both made mistakes
oh
and
gosh,
regret
did I?
some of the things that we've put out there. But I wanted to start a little bit with your backstory because I think a lot of people might not know, and I think it's a really interesting story of like how you got into instruction. I mean, I know you went to college for a couple years and was
Actually,
trying to.
I actually didn't go that long. Not to interrupt you, I didn't go that
Oh
long.
yeah.
I had never played golf until after I was injured right out of high school. Um,
Okay.
I lost the vision in my right eye to a terrible accident,
What
and
was that? Could you mind me asking about that?
sure,
I was curious about that. Tell
I
me
was
what
shot.
happened.
I was shot with one of those high-powered pellet rifles, air rifles.
Oh.
Blinded instantly. Changed my life forever. October the 29th, 1991, at about 5 o'clock Central Time.
Oh my
You never
gosh.
forget certain days in your life,
Hundred
and
percent.
that's one day that I'll never forget. And so I never played golf with vision in both eyes, and I was a jumper. I was gifted jumping. I wish I would have been born and raised in Southern California for the volleyball, but I was a good jumper. And the surgeons in Memphis, and I had a fantastic team of surgeons. They were trying to save my retina, which for everybody listening, the retina is on the back of the eye. It's the movie
Mm-hmm.
screen. When light comes through the pupil, it gets focused by the lens. The back of the eye, that's the retina, that's the movie screen, and my retina was just destroyed. And they were trying to save it, and they didn't want me jumping. They didn't want the collision. And I thought, well, I got to do something. And my friends played golf, so I started hitting golf balls with them. And the truthful answer is, I was never drawn to the game for playing the game. I was drawn to the game because of the perceived difficulty of the game.
Mm.
Because everybody was like, "Oh God, this is so hard. This game is so difficult," and that's what
Right.
drew me to it. Was, why is this game so hard? Why do people perceive this game to be so difficult? So for me, that was the hook, because I knew with my lack of vision, I was never going to be great. Um, so I knew that I was never going to be, quote unquote, a player. And plus, I started too late. And just for context, my father made it through the sixth grade. My
Oh
mother
wow.
made it. My mother made it to the ninth grade, and we were very poor. So, and I'm living in the middle of the country in West Tennessee, Cedar Grove, Tennessee. Look it up. There ain't a golf course within an hour. So for me personally, and I'm not trying to play the violin. For me personally, golf was a million miles away geographically and financially. It wasn't in the cards. It wasn't meant to be. So anyway, started playing golf when I was 18. I was drawn to it because of the perceived difficulty. And Jason, within a year, 18 months, call it 1993, if it was a book, I either owned it or I had read it. If it was a VHS tape, and all you young guys listen have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yep.
If it was
Showing
a
our age.
VHS tape, yeah, if it was a VHS tape, I had it. There was a television show that used to come on called Inside the PGA Tour
Yep. Remember it.
once a week on Sunday nights, and I couldn't wait for that little 30-second instructional clip. And I remember the first golf instruction book that I ever bought was from Jimmy Ballard, How to Perfect Your Golf Swing.
Yep. Seven common denominators.
The seven combiners, the brace connected address, exactly. And I had an amazing videotape. Jimmy filmed a VHS tape back in, I think, 1981. And he was in Pell City, Alabama. I still remember it 30 years later. He was wearing bell bottoms.
Oh, sure.
And he was out there talking about the brace connected address, firing the right side. And I had that videotape, believe it or not. So I was hooked. And a lot of people think that I just came on the scene 10 years ago, got myself a TrackMan, said, you know what? I'm a golf pro. Let's go do it. No.
Let's set them straight. That's what we're here for.
If you, like my preacher said, if you're going to tell it, son, tell it all.
There you go.
Stand up and testify. So that's the beginning. That's how I got started.
Yeah. And then I think the big thing was, and there was a little gap because I've done a lot of research, and I know you because we're friends, but like when you said you started coaching before you got TrackMan, like where were you at this time? And then I think, meeting Grant Wade, I think was a big jump for you as well. So kind of tell that story, how it led into actually coaching tour players.
Sure. Well, I owe Grant a debt of gratitude that I'll never be able to repay because, he believed in me. He believed in my knowledge. He believed in my intellectual ability, and he took me out to the tour and he stuck me in front of the best players in the world. They were like, who the hell is this guy? But my story, once I got into hitting golf balls in 1991, 92, 93, I started helping my friends on the side and every now and then helping someone at the local muni. I got my first, I guess you would call it, big job in golf out in Palm Springs. My first big job was out in Rancho Mirage. And working in the cart barn.
Yeah, like
I was a starter. I was
go.
a starter, and I was a valet parker, and I was a club scrubber, and I was a cigarette butt picker upper. And again, helping people on the side. And I knew there were problems that I couldn't solve. There were answers that I didn't have. And the disheartening part was I didn't see any way of getting those answers.
Sure.
I didn't know how I was going to get those answers because we didn't have any technology. As a matter of fact, we didn't even, as you know, we didn't even have cell phones. We didn't even have the cameras that we have now. So There was no TrackMan. There was no AMM 3D. There was none of this stuff. And I was very disheartened because, as you said, you've known me for a long time and you know how I am. I like to get down to it.
Yes.
And in 1998, 1999, I knew that I was not getting down to it.
I
wasn't getting any better. My students weren't getting any better. And no offense, the books that I read, I knew they didn't have the answers either.
Because they're all written by tour players, right? It's like
Bingo.
they're all telling you what they're working on or what they feel, and then we know now that that can be misleading.
Oh, can be, is be.
Yeah.
And you would read the golf book and it would say, well, we want your position here, we want your position here, and I'm like, well, Lee Trevino can beat the brakes off of all of us, and he doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah.
And you know me, Jason, you know how that's my mind works. And I thought, now, wait a second, if we go to the PGA Tour event, because remember, this is back in early mid-90s, and I'm like, well, if I watch Jack Nicklaus hit balls, and I watch Lee Trevino hit balls, and if I watch Nick Faldo hit balls, they don't look anything alike. But they're all elite players. And then I always wondered, no offense to Ben Hogan, my God, how could anybody say anything bad about Ben Hogan, of course. But let's be honest. And this is something I wouldn't have said 10 years ago, because when you bring up Ben Hogan, you're getting ready to slap a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Ben Hogan's book, Ben Hogan's swing, Ben Hogan's mystique, to this day captivates instructors. It captivates instruction.
Yeah.
But if we're being honest, if we're telling it like it is, Nicklaus hit it higher. Nicklaus hit it further. He did. Nicklaus putted it better. He did. And I think we can agree, if we're talking about the greatest putters that have ever lived, Jack and Tiger are 1A and 1B. Period.
Yep.
Case closed. Nicklaus hit it higher. He hit it further. Nicklaus's long irons were things to be marveled at. Nicklaus's driver, to this day, you take Jack Nicklaus, 27 years old right now, and you give him a brand new ping and a Pro V1, and he would put on a show. And we both know that.
Yep.
So why is Nicklaus's swing not taught? Why does Mr. Hogan and Mr. Hogan's book have such a stronghold on instruction when Jack hit it higher and further, outputted him,
right? And no disrespect to Hogan. God, no, that's not what this is about. Because
No, I
somebody
understand.
out there will say, can you believe Joe Mayo was disrespecting Ben Hogan? No, it wasn't. Of course I wasn't. But when I saw Nicholas hit the ball, I'm like, holy shit, look at that ball fly.
Yeah.
But he didn't do the things that the golf books said to do. And that right there was always a problem for me. So to fast forward it,
Yep.
it's about late 1999. I'm in Palm Springs, been there a couple of years. I'm not getting any better. The people that I'm helping are not getting any teacher list. And I thought, well, if he can't help me, I'm unhelpable. I take $1,000, which back in 1999, that was like $100,000. And I go out to Desert Mountain and I spend a day with Mr. Flick. And, you know, God bless his soul. I don't think I've ever met a kinder man than Jim Flick.
The best. He's the best.
The best.
Yeah.
But you also know the questions that I asked Jason.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't answer the questions. He just couldn't.
Sure.
And when I look back at it, he couldn't answer the questions because I couldn't answer the questions because we didn't have the ability to answer the questions. It had nothing to do with Jim Flick. It had to do with we were in a stranglehold. We didn't have the technology that allowed us to answer the questions. So I wasn't any better. I went home. I was so disheartened. I sold the ball, bag, putter, balls, gloves, everything gone. You're out of here. And I thought, okay, I have no degree, no college education. I got no skill set. What in the hell am I going to do with my life? I moved to the beach in LA. I moved to the South Bay, which for people that have never lived there, that's Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, just south of LAX, LA Airport. And I met a gentleman through golf that was a professional poker player. And he said, I have never in my life recommended this lifestyle to anybody, and now I know why. He said, you're the only person that I've met that I would recommend this to. And when you ain't got no degree, no skill set, you got to do something.
Yeah. Like what do you think he saw in you there? Like, and that's to dig deeper into that. I mean, I know we're going to talk golf here, but I like to dig into the person. It's like one of the most intelligent guys I've ever met. Like with the education,
Thank you.
where does that come from? You know, it's like I know you've talked about like getting a perfect score on the ACT and studying for that, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you've done that's like a little off the grid, but I'm like, and that obviously was probably had to do with poker. Like, what do you think that is?
I did not get a perfect score on the ACT. What I did do is I got a perfect SAT math score.
You were trying to get into Harvard for just some odd reason.
That's not over with. That's not over with. No,
right.
no.
Yeah, I'm just sidebar.
COVID.
I'm just building a picture
threw a
here
monkey
for
wrench in
people.
that.
Yeah.
COVID threw a monkey wrench in that. I've spoken to multiple people about going there and studying mathematics. So that ship has not sailed.
So where did all that come from? Like how did you get that?
I don't know. My mom and my dad, when they got together that night, they just happened to push the right buttons.
The gene pool.
They just pushed the right buttons.
You got the math gene.
I think so. They just pushed the right buttons that night.
All right. So back to your professional poker player.
He could sense the math. He could sense the strategy.
Sure.
And when you grow up in the South like I did, you know how to play spades and hearts and canasta and rook and rummy. And so, playing card games, that's just part of life.
Mm-hmm.
And, I consider myself to be a pretty good critical thinker. I think I'm pretty objective, and that is poker.
Right.
That is poker in a nutshell. So I sat behind this guy virtually every night for 6 weeks straight, right behind him, watching every single hand he played. And then the poker boom hit, which was like the golf boom. When Tiger Woods came on the scene, that's the greatest single moment in the history of the PGA Tour, period. It's probably the greatest single moment in the history of the sport.
Sure.
What he did for golf. For those of you that have never watched poker on television, you won't know what I'm talking about, but there was a guy named Chris Moneymaker.
Yep. Online.
He won the World Series of Poker in about circa 2001, 2002. This guy was an accountant from Tennessee. Wasn't a pro. And the thing about it was he won a tournament online that was like, I don't know, $5 or $10, which got him into another one, which got him into another one. Next thing you know, he wins a seat into the World Championship of Poker, the World Series of Poker out in Las Vegas. And these seats sell for $10,000 a pop. He got in there off of an online tournament that he won.
Yep.
And just so happens, by chance, ESPN is filming the whole damn thing. So an accountant from Tennessee wins his way into this tournament and wins the damn thing with ESPN cameras rolling. It was the greatest moment in the history of cards, and I was in the middle of that. And I played cards.
You were at the tournament, or you were like
No. I mean, I was in the middle of that poker world. I'm in the middle of the poker world.
Gotcha. Okay,
living in LA, playing poker at Hollywood Park, playing poker at Hustler, which was Larry Flint's joint, playing poker out at Commerce, playing at the Bicycle, playing at the Normandy Club, and all you card players will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It was the greatest time that sport will ever know. And people were giving their money away, just giving their money away. At Hollywood Park,
like
you guys that don't know. Exactly.
Just
it was
to play with
rounders.
sitting with a world champion.
I just want to sit with Johnny Chan one
Yeah,
time.
that's
I'm going
right.
to play him. I'm going to outplay him just this time.
That's right.
And that was reality. And, Hollywood Park is on the west side, so all the people from Beverly Hills would come down with that money. And it was a great time to be alive. And then to fast forward, I know I'm taking up a lot of time.
No,
my dad was
perfect,
diagnosed with cancer in 2008. 2008, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And I cannot tell you the exact time. Circa late 2008 is my best guess. And I hadn't been around golf now in years. Didn't care if I ever saw another golf ball as long as I lived.
You freezed up on
And
me
we're
there.
at one
There
of
we
my
go.
five.
Okay.
You there? So, circa late 2008, we're at one of my dad's doctor's appointments. And I pick up some publication, I don't know what it was, and I found out about this thing called TrackMan. And I went, holy smokes. So, and at this point, I'm living in Las Vegas. I go back to Vegas, and I get a job in retail golf. I'm like, I'm going to get back in this thing. I'm going to see what's going on with this.
Okay.
And I met a doctor who took a liking to me. He also believed in my ability. He says, hey, Joe, let's get a TrackMan. And I said, let's do it. I'll put in $500 and you put in $25,000 and we'll get one.
Perfect.
And I remember the day it came in. And for all of you guys out there that remember the TrackMan 2, it was about this big, and it would take 25 minutes. Yeah, it would go whoa, 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 whoa. The legs would come out, and then about the time you're ready to film or to measure, it would say Microsoft Update. You're like, oh God. So now the computer would take an hour. But anyway, to make a long story short, I got that going on, and after weeks and weeks of watching people hit shots, I started to see these geometric patterns developing.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, back in those days, there wasn't no internet forums. There wasn't any owner's manuals. You couldn't call your buddy, hey, what do you think about so-and-so TrackMan number? That's not the way this boat was floating.
You didn't know who Frederick Tuxon was at this point.
Well, I found out quick about him.
Yeah, I know you did. But I'm just saying, that was one of my questions is, once you started getting it, who taught you how to use it? Or it was just sort of just self-discovery?
Well,
and
at that time, it's on its own. And I remember Brian Manzella had a TrackMan. I remember James Lights had a TrackMan.
Right.
And other than those two or three guys, I didn't know. I just didn't. And I remember the first tournament I took it to was the Bob Hope in about 2011. Again, don't quote me on the year.
It's okay.
And well, let's back up. So I had the TrackMan. I'm running it. And Grant Waite, who I knew of him, was doing a golf school out in Las Vegas at TPC Las Vegas. And Dana Dahlquist knew me and he knew Grant. And Dana says, Grant, there's a guy out there named Joe Mayo that's got a TrackMan, and I think he's the best on it. That's Dana talking, not me. And Grant said, I would love to have him. So we got in touch, and Grant says, hey, I want you to come out and do the lecture part. And I said, Grant, I'm not so sure you want me to do that because I may say some things that are going to contradict what's long believed to be true. He went, no, I want you to do it.
Okay.
So I show up out there. There's actually 2 or 3 PGA Tour players that are in this school. And I thought, this is my one shot at glory, by God, and I'm going to take it. And, man, I went from A to Z. I started talking about the triangles and the 60, 30, 90 and the VSP. I mean, I went to town. And their eyes were just spinning like a Las Vegas slot machine. And I thought, well, I'm either going to go to glory or I'm going to go to jail. I don't know which one I'm going to do, but it's either sink or swim. And Grant called me a few days later, if my memory serves me well, and he said, Joe, I thought it was incredible. And we struck up a friendship because Grant loves that kind of stuff.
Oh, I was going to say, that was
if
right
he doesn't
down his
know
alley.
something, if he doesn't know it, he wants to know it.
Right.
Grant's not going to turn a blind eye
and say
to
that's
data. He's not going to do that.
I don't believe in that. That's perfect.
So we struck up a friendship, and one day I seized the opportunity. I said, Grant, why are we not in business together? I said, I know the math and I know the numbers and I understand the three-dimensional aspect of ball flight, TrackMan, yada, yada, yada. And I said, you're a great player. You're a great ball hitter. You've got the credibility. Yeah. You can take me out there. And he said, done. So he takes me out there. And I literally went from nobody knowing who I was, nobody giving a shit what I had to say. And overnight, I'm talking to the best players in the world. And I'm also going to be honest, sometimes those best players didn't want to hear what I had to say.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're like, who is this clown?
They're still like that.
It's like,
and
they know me and they're still that way.
I'm just saying in general, not to you, I'm just saying in general, a lot of guys don't want to act like they're technical or whatever. Now there's 12 TrackMans on the range every tour event.
Per player.
Right.
Per player.
Yeah. And a foresight.
100%. But anyway, to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, Grant took me out there, put me in front of the best players in the world, allowed me to get started. I owe him a debt of gratitude that I'll never repay. He opened. Not only did he open the door, he put the door there. He put the door there. And sometimes you can't open the door if there's no door there. Yeah. He put the door there, and the rest is history. Here we are.
Yeah, but I think, to be fair, to your credit, I mean, we have these discussions with young coaches, and this is where this podcast started. We're talking to young coaches. We're talking to all the coaches, but I'm just saying when it started, and I've had plenty of interns, and they're coming up through PGM programs. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Like, oh, I want to work with tour players. I'm like, that's not the right attitude, right? I mean, you might if you get good enough, but to your credit and to kind of where we, our journey, you got to be ready when that opportunity happens, right? Or if not, then you're going to get shut down and you're going to get fired real quick. So you were clearly
100%.
Ready with the information and obviously the delivery. Who was your first official tour player? Was it Brian Gay? When I first met you that you were working full time with him.
The GOAT.
Yeah. Was that the first guy or was it kind of?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the first person that ever said, Joe, I want you to help me.
Yeah. Talk about your relationship with him and kind of what you guys did. Because you guys were together for a while.
Brian was wonderful to be around. He believed in me. He knew the information was right. And he did his best to do what I asked him to do. And Brian Gay is a very important part of what I've been doing the last couple of years with this short game stuff I've been putting out there.
Yeah, we're going to get there. But I know you haven't always been again, everybody knows who you are, but I mean, for the two people, you taught full swing for a long time, and you still do.
Long time.
Yeah, I understand. But that's why I want to get into your back, and we'll talk about Viktor and what you did with him as well, and then we're gonna go deep into the short game stuff. But
sure,
Brian Gay.
Brian, as I said, was my first client.
Unbelievable chipper, right? I mean, that guy was unreal around the greens.
He could wake up and roll out of bed and chip it good, and I measured Brian.
I was about to ask you, were you measuring it back in those days? That's way
you bet your ass.
We always wanted to measure full swings and drivers because it was super cool. I don't think we measured enough short game stuff back in those days. Is that when it started? You
bet your ass.
Yeah.
And I've put pictures out there that are timestamps of me measuring him. And I remember looking at the numbers. And I can close my eyes right now like I'm doing, and I can just visualize his swing and what he was doing. And I can tell you right now, when I measured him, you're looking at angles of attack of 10 plus down. You're looking at launches of sub 30, 27, 28. You're looking at spin rates that are through the roof. And, cosmetically, that club head would come out of his right jawbone. He would stand up and that swing plane would be steep. VSPs in the 80s. And I'm like, well, wow, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. And before we put the cart before the horse,
Yeah.
there is no question that measuring him and being around a chipper and pitcher of that caliber 12 years ago jump started me into what I'm doing now.
For sure.
I mean, I think I would have figured it out. Yes, I would have, but it sure as hell helped me when I saw those numbers 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That's
a great lead in. So obviously, last few years have been really exciting for you working with Viktor Hovland and your success, with him. Take us back to the beginning when you guys met, when you started working together, and you've told me these stories, but I want you to tell as much as you can. And this is a coach to coach deal here. This podcast is not for the players, so get as technical as you can for the good teachers out there.
I met Viktor going out to Oklahoma State. Coach Bratton and Coach Dar at that time, Donnie Dar, they had me come out to Okie State, and I met the players that way. And I remember Viktor and we struck up a friendship. And late 2019, call it August or September. I can't give you the exact time. I could look it up. I have my notes, but I don't have it in front of me. And he said, "Hey, Joe, would you take a look at some swings?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And he sent me his swings, and I did a video analysis for him, about a half an hour long. I still have that analysis saved. I sent it to him, I sent it to Coach Bratton, and I sent it to Coach Dar because I believe in complete transparency. And I told him in that analysis, no less than 4 times, stay away from golf instruction.
Yeah, because he's got a very unusual move per se, and a lot of the pieces that he does. So continue. I don't want to, but I mean, I think that's cool. Yeah,
stay away from it. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. He comes out to see me. Call it November of 19, October, somewhere in that period. He comes out, and we go out to TPC Summerlin out in Vegas, where I'm the director of instruction, and he hits balls. I said, "Okay, let's see it." And he just puts on an exhibition. Of course he does. He's smoking 4-iron straight up in the air, 240 yards as straight as you can point, hammering that 3-wood in that driver. And when it was over, I said, "What the hell am I supposed to do with that?" What am I supposed to do with that? So we go back to my house, and I've had a few cocktails, a few bourbons. And I said, "Viktor," I said, I looked right at him, and I'll never forget. I said, "Viktor," I said, let's just put it on the line. I'm not going to be your golf instructor because you don't need one. I said, if you want to talk about poker and you want to drink some bourbon and hang out, I'm your guy. But we're not going to do golf instruction. We're not going to do it. Now, if there's any other instructor in the world that's sane and rational that would tell him no, I don't know who it is, but I did.
Yeah, exactly.
And I told him no, and he will tell you that I told him no. And I'm not so sure he knew how to take it, but he did. And then he went off on his way, and he finally went to some instructors, which that's neither here nor there. But yes, I told him no in 2019.
Yeah, because let me stop you there, just because I know a little bit about his sort of demeanor, and I've heard him on other shows and podcasts. He's a very curious guy, like a lot of tour players are. So he seems to be searching a lot, right? So it's probably
he's very curious. He's very intelligent.
Yeah. So a guy like that can be dangerous to himself if he doesn't get somebody to make sure he's not going down the wrong rabbit hole. So continue.
I couldn't agree more. And he calls me in December of 22 and says, "Joe, it's really bad. Will you take a look?" And I did. I told him what I wanted him to do. Everything went great. He comes out to see me in Las Vegas in January. We decide to work together. It was full swing. Mm-hmm. And then once we were satisfied with that, we started short game, and we did not put in short game work until Tuesday.
You froze up there just a second. So let me so backtrack. Don't skip over the full swing. We're gonna get into short game, but I want you to talk about what you did with him with his full swing, because I think that could be super interesting. What did you see, and then what did you do and why?
Well, okay. Viktor has a unique pattern. Remember, he does certain things that make it more difficult. Number one, he aims to the right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes considerably. Number two, when the ball's on the ground, the angle of attack being downward moves the path where?
To the right.
To the right. So now he's got the ball on the ground not helping him. He's got the angle of attack not helping him. He's aiming to the right, which doesn't help him. And he's trying to start the ball to the left and cut it.
Right. He's a fader.
Do you see how we're running uphill already?
Sure.
So for Viktor, when he makes the backswing, when he hits that transition, bam, he's now got to get back
Side bend.
so he can allow the club to move around him so he can pull cut the ball. When he sent me the videos in December of 22, he was going down and down and down and down and down. So now the club can't, quote unquote, get around
the corner.
Angle of attack was 7 and 8 down with short stuff, path moving to the right. He's hitting pull draws. So I explained to him, I said, brother, it's like you're sinking. You're just dropping and dropping and dropping. I said, you've got to get up. You've got to get back. You've got to extend. The golf club has got to get around you at some point. And what he was doing at that moment in time would not allow that. So that's what we did.
So, yeah, and obviously people are going to have to watch the YouTube version here to kind of get a little bit of idea, but like be a little more descriptive. That you're basically talking about extending his spine.
Yes. In other words, the bottom line is this.
Yeah.
You know, you watch a lot of great players, you know, they'll turn centered and they'll come back nice and forward right here, and then they'll just stay put and they'll extend in the finish. He can't do that. He has to get over here when he hits transition, right? That's when he starts side bending and moving back this way, because now the golf club's got to get over there. Period.
Yeah. So how did you train that? Like, what were some drills you gave him, or any like?
I just put him back to where he used to be, because that's what he used to do.
Yeah, because I mean it's super helpful. Obviously, that you had that video when he's in college.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to tell you something. Just instructor to instructor. And I said this to a PGA Tour player 2 days ago that came to see me. Jason, I cannot tell you how many times I've had a good player or a great player come to me, and I will tell them, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to try to change you. I'm going to try to put you back to where you were before you got screwed up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sometimes
it can be that simple.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But
I said that 2 days ago to a PGA Tour player.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because I find myself doing that a lot with the 100 mini tour guys that come to see me, right? It's like they're trying to be something that they're not, and then they kind of forget the pattern of the feel that made them great, right? Or got them to the level. They think they got to do something else. And to be fair, they're trying to get better, but a lot of times they go down the wrong corridor. Yeah, exactly. So what did you like pull up video and show them, like, hey, here's where you used to be. This is kind of where you need to be. Did he sort of start to recollect like the old feels that what was kind of the back and forth with you guys?
Yes, that was that. And also remember, and I think I forgot to tell you this, when he came to see me in 2019 and I said, I will not be your instructor, I did have the wherewithal to take him to Dallas to my good friend, John Sinclair.
Right.
And I got John to measure him on AMM. And we still, you know, John has the data, and I still have the videos from that day. So think about why I did that. He's hitting it so damn good then. I want to make sure we get this on record.
Yeah. They want to have a baseline.
So when he went sideways, I'm like, John, give me the numbers.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we saw were glaring. So that helped me help him.
Sure. What were some of the things that he was doing that I know John like has sort of an overview of it, and then he
pelvis was considerably more forward than it had been. Sternum was more forward than it had been. The tilts, the bends were not the same. That right there was enough to throw him into the ringer, because as I said, if you're going to aim to the right, if the ball's on the ground, angle of attack's down, path is moving to the right, and you want to start the ball to the left and cut it, you have to do things. And you have to do things that are unconventional, if you will. You, by definition, are an outlier. Now, Jason, I want you to put your thinking cap on right now. Can you name a great player? Well, if they're on the tour, they're great. Can you think of another PGA Tour player that aims considerably to the right and hits pull cuts with the ball on the ground? Exactly.
Not right off the bat. Yeah, I was gonna think Rocco.
Exactly.
Rocco was like the first thing, but he hits draws.
Mm-hmm. He pull draws it.
Yeah.
I think he does. So that's my
Yeah.
point.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. So, people are talking about outlier swings, and when you think about outliers, people talk about Jim Furyk and they talk about Matt Wolff. I'm like, no, I'll tell you an outlier golf swing. I'll give you Viktor Hovland and I'll give you Tom Lehman.
Yeah. Well, my guy, Will McGirt.
Yeah.
Like that's why
Yeah.
I love. I see beauty in McGirt's move because of what we've worked on the last 4 years. But being able to put the pieces together with something that looks a little unconventional is what we do, right? Like being able to did you not change his stance at all? Like you felt like he needed to square up, open, whatever. You just kept
Why would
him
I
there?
do that? He aimed to the right when you couldn't beat him.
There you go.
So I'm not going to change that.
Just curious. Yeah, well, that's cool.
But my point being, the outliers, Viktor Hovland and Tom Lehman.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Lehman aimed to the left and hit draws.
Yeah.
Victor aims to the right, hits pull cuts. In my opinion, those are outliers.
Yeah.
And when you look at Tom Lehman, a lot of this going on, a lot of tilt, a lot of knee drive to the target, a lot of right side bend.
Yeah.
So what he would do, in my opinion, is aim his baseline to the left to take away that excessive rightward path that was created by the tilt and the knee drive and all that good stuff, and that raised up handle.
He'd hit, even more of a hook if somebody said, "Oh, you got to square up, you got to aim this way or whatever." Yeah, it's the same way with my guy. I mean, we figured something out at RSM, and just like I said, listening to your player because we're trying to hit draws, and he's always played with a pretty square stance since I've known him, and he goes, I really played great when I had an open stance. I'm like, well, let's do that. And just absolutely flushed it. And now it's like, but for other sort of reasons to square the face and to get himself cleared on his front side. But yeah, that's really, really cool. All right. So fast forward. So then he's obviously, you guys are working together and, everybody on social media and the golf channels saying how bad he sucks around the greens. He's the worst chipper on tour. So take us.
Well,
take
he
us
didn't
to
help
that
himself
moment.
when he didn't help himself when he made that comment, quote, "I suck at chipping" about 4 or 5 years ago. He didn't do himself any favors.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
he said that.
But that's a perception.
Well, we decided to do short game after Phoenix. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I called Ben Crane, who's a good friend of mine, and Ben's a wonderful short game guy. And we had a little intervention. And we had a 3-way call, me, Ben, and Victor. And we said, we're going to start short game. My next call was to John Sinclair. I said, John, I need the data from 2019 on 15 and 30-yard shots, which we got. And John gave me the data. And when he did, my eyebrows went, oh, shit. There it is.
What was it?
And I was,
come on now. Don't leave anything out.
15-yard chip shots. I'm looking at dynamic lofts of 42, 43, angles of attack of 2 and 3 down. That's game, set, match right there. It's game over. It's game over. That's not good. And I said, Victor, I said, what if I told you that I wanted you to get steeper? And he said, well, I'm not so sure about that. I said, well, we're going to.
Yeah.
And we talked about.
Hold on. Back up one more time. You froze up again on me. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So I said, Victor, what would you say if I told you to get steeper? Oh, I'm not so sure about that. Well, that's what we're going to do. His angle of attack went from 3 down to about 12 down. Bam. 400%. I talked to him about left tilting in the backswing. How, why, when, what for, what great things it creates. Now, next thing you know, this kid's low point's in front of the ball.
Amazing.
Now he's hitting this thing absolutely dead solid. And I asked him, I said, what short game instruction have you had? Because he went to a bunch of people, and I'm not going to mention any names because that's neither here nor there. Every lesson was basically the same. Well, you can't chip it good with that wrist angle. You can't do that, right? How many times have we heard that one?
Yep.
Well, I showed him a picture of Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson. All three like that about halfway down. I said, So we're never going to have this conversation again, are we, that you have to have that wrist angle? We're never going to have this conversation again. Because what was pretty cool, because what was pretty cool is on this wrist angle, Jordan hit a low spinner, Brooks hit a medium shot, Dustin hit a high soft pitch with the same wrist angle. So this is what I tell people, and I've got my trusty ping wedge here.
Yep.
Halfway down, if the blade is pointed right there, so how many times have we heard, well, you can't do that because that's going to get the leading edge involved. You're going to stick it in the ground, which that's a crock of shit. So everybody's told them to do this. You got to cup that wrist. You got to get that face open. You got to expose that bounce. And here was my question to him. I asked him two simple questions which closed that door forever. I said, Victor, you've been playing with this wrist angle since you were 3 years old. Do you mean to tell me that you're going to be on the 72nd hole of the Masters and twist that damn wrist like that and try to chip it in the hole with the world watching? Are you trying to tell me that? Which is silly. He's never going to do it. Never going to do it because it's so far outside of his DNA. But the second thing is this, right? My question to you is this, Jason. If he's trying to hit that low spinner, which was the first thing I taught him, and you now know that this club's been bent to 60, you now know, Jason, that the best players in the world are putting 42, 44, 45 dynamic on that shot. They're trying to get 15 degrees of loft off of the club face.
Correct.
Why in the world would I twist the face open when I'm trying to get loft off of it? And when I proposed those two questions to him, I could see his eyes light up. He went, oh, shit, I got it. So everybody that he went to, same old thing, get shallow, use the bounce, get the handle down, cup the wrist, open the face, all of that. Not one single person, not one, ever said, do you know what spin loft is? Not one. Not one. Every lesson he had was how to cup the wrist, how to open the face. It was always about the top vector of spin loft. And for you people listening, we'll get to that. Yeah. It was always about the top vector. Nobody ever talked about the bottom vector. Nobody ever taught this kid how to hit the damn golf ball solidly, repetitively, predictably. And once I got him to do that, Jason, it was game, set, match. Yeah. Think about it. I want you to listen to this. Now, this is going to make a lot of sense to you.
I know.
This first day of short game.
Stuff.
Exactly. So if you go to Riviera, there's a little short game area down on the other side of number 3 fairway, down to the left. And that's where we were. Him, his caddy, and his agent were standing there. And I looked at him. I said, listen, he's going to chip it good here in about an hour. Everybody's going to be just fine. And I looked at him and I said, I do not accept the hypothesis that you can't chip. I said, you're one of the best ball hitters I've ever seen in my life. You can hit a 4-iron 240 yards straight as an arrow at a flagstick. You mean to tell me you can't chip a damn golf ball 10 yards? I said, it's nonsensical. It's ridiculous. It's foolish. And once he learned that forget all this mess, forget all that. Yeah. Once he focused on moving forward, moving low point forward, steepening the angle of attack, Jason, in an hour, he said, I got it. I got it. I said, I know you got it. And he stood there
every time,
shredding
believe it.
The cover.
Was he just like kind of almost in amazement of like, what the heck is going on?
Yes. I think
I
what I told him? I said, I can tell what you're thinking. I said, you're waiting for it to screw up again. You're waiting for something to go wrong, but it won't. And then when I threw the radar on him, and he was 12, 13, 14 down, not even taking a divot, that's when the wheel started turning, and that's when the light bulbs came on.
Yeah, and we're going to get into I want to get into the really specifics of mechanics here in a little bit, but I remember I called you, I think it was right after he may have won or just, everything was kind of blowing up. And I said, all right, I'm just going to make sure we're on the same page here and ask you what you told him. He goes, you're not going to believe it.
No.
Move towards target. And then I go, and he goes, he told you, he goes, I feel like I'm going to hit it so fat. And you go, well, just stand up.
Just stand up.
Yeah, just stand up.
He's
a world-class athlete, right? I mean,
he's so good. He's so gifted. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
he's so good.
That's the easy ones we don't get too often.
But I want you to consider one thing before we move on.
Yeah.
Is Viktor Hovland a generational talent? Of course.
Yes.
Of course he is. He's generational. What does it tell you when a generational talent was told to do X? Cut wrist, bounce, shallow, whatever. And he couldn't do it. And he told you he couldn't do it. He said, I suck at chipping. He's telling you I can't do it. And he comes along, and the next thing you know, his angle of attack goes from 3 down to 13 down. The next thing you know, his VSP is almost 90. It's like this.
Yeah.
He's moving this far forward. And it changed his short game life. What does that tell you when a generational talent can't do it, and he couldn't do it from multiple instructors? What's that tell you, Jason? Because the answer is this. If my information is as good as I tout it to be, if the math is correct like I have touted it to be, if you give this information to a world-class player, you should see instantaneous results, and it can't be anything less. Think about what I just said. The talent is there. The genetics are there. The work ethic is there. This over here is the information, right?
Yes.
If this information is as good as I claim it to be, when you move that information over here with these things, you better see improvement 5 minutes ago. Agreed. And I will not accept anything less.
Yep, I agree. So, all right. So before we move on to the metrics, I'm going to break this down to get you to really get detailed here. And this is something that I've talked about on other podcasts as a guest. The moving the center of mass forward, the left bending piece. I know a lot of players do it. Have you ever seen it bleed over into their full swing and become a problem? And if so, like, how do you combat that? Because I've had that happen a little bit with some of my guys.
I had a player ask me about that. I had an LPGA Tour player ask me about that. Mm-hmm. And when I filmed her, I didn't see any evidence of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I didn't. I think it could have been emotional with her. Here's what I would say. I would not be worth my salt if I said it can't happen, won't happen, has never happened. That, you know me, I don't use those terms.
Right.
Could it happen? Absolutely. Have I seen it with one of my players yet? No. But if it did happen, obviously we would train it out in the full swing. But that's an interesting point, because now,
oh, you just locked up there on me. You still there? Oh.
Let's go back. I lost you.
Yeah. You're good. Yeah. Just go back.
Okay. So here's what we are. I'll start it over. I personally have never seen it with one of my players, but if I did catch it, we would train it out. But the good thing about it is that brings up an interesting point, that short game shots and full swing are completely opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. We know that. It's just like, I get those comments sometimes from the players, like, you're asking me to do this and this, and I always say you got to be able to adapt, right? Every shot's different.
And I don't mean just cosmetically. I don't mean the fact that we're trying to hit a little high soft shot or a little spinner shot. I'm talking the forces and torques that were put on the club is opposite. And Tom Pernice had a great saying. He said, "Nothing makes me madder when I hear that a chip shot is a mini golf swing." He says, "God, that pisses me off."
Yeah, it's not.
Because it's not. It's not. It's actually dead opposite. So I haven't seen it bleed into one of my players yet, and if it does, then we will train that out.
Gotcha.
But it just goes to show you that little chips and pitches and full swing are completely opposite.
Yeah. How do you feel about? I think we talked about this a little bit when we were out at RSM, but in that case, a lot of times I'll have them move forward a touch later, like more like in conjunction with transition, as opposed to early on. Yeah, I always give them those two options, right? Some work better early, and then some work better actually moving, the upper center, translating forward in the transition or in the forward stroke.
I
I was
got
just
no
curious
problem with
about that. Yeah, I was just curious about that. Okay, so I want to break this down into a couple parts when we talk about what we're talking, and we're focusing on the low spinner here, right? Because that's the only shot we teach, right? That on social media.
That's the only shot I've ever taught. All I teach is steep, low spinners. You didn't know that?
That's a joke. I mean, everybody will get that, but so I want to know. So let's dig into the math, right? Because I got a bunch of questions from social media, Instagram, and whatnot, and this was one of them. And I said, we'll definitely cover, like, what are we looking at as far as the metrics on TrackMan? What are your ranges that you're seeing? Okay, and then I want to dig into specifically like the movement of that and what creates it, right? The mechanics of it. So let's talk about the math first.
Sure. My radar, when I'm doing short game, I've only got 5 numbers showing. I've got angle of attack, dynamic loft, launch angle, spin rate, VSP, swing plane. And when I am working with someone, first of all, when everybody comes to me for the first time, I'll ask them, why do we chip it badly? And they start thinking of a scientific answer. I'm like, stop right there. We chip it badly because we hit the ground too soon and or too deeply, period. Period. That's the answer. And if I can take away the pieces that cause you to hit the ground too soon and or too deeply, then what you're left with is a great chipping stroke. That's what you're left with by definition. The metrics that I'm looking for, we know. If we had Scotty Scheffler, Viktor Hovland, Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, Jordan Spieth right now lined up in my backyard hitting low spinners, the dynamic loft, the amount of loft given to the ball is going to be somewhere between 42 to 40, period. And that now leads us down the road of, well, how do you take a 60 degree wedge and give it 42 dynamic? You lean the shaft.
Yeah. So forward shaft.
You lean it considerably, but you've been told, the listener, you've been told that shaft lean's bad. You've been told that shaft lean digs. That's what you've been told, which is not true. And Jason, not only is it not true, it's absolutely required.
Yes.
Or did you hear the word I just said, Jason? It's required.
Yes.
It's required. How the hell am I supposed to take a 60 degree wedge and put 42 degrees of dynamic loft on it if I don't lean the shaft?
No chance, unless you blade it.
But I got news for you. If Viktor Hovland is hitting shots right now outside my bedroom, down my hallway, he's going to give the ball 42 degrees of dynamic loft. So now that we've got that out of the way, the first metric is dynamic loft of, say, 42 to 45. That's number one.
Okay.
When we do that, that's the first piece of bringing the launch angle down, which I want to see around 26 to 29 on the quote-unquote low spinner. Mm-hmm. Slightly sub. Will I take 30? Of course I will. Will I take 26? Of course I will. So getting that shaft leaning forward, getting that dynamic down to 42, 44, that's the first piece of getting that launch sub 30. Now, what's the second piece is the angle of attack. Because, we've been told for 500 years you got to hit down to make the ball go up. Well, yes. I remember doing coaches camp with Andrew Rice a decade ago, and I asked everybody in the crowd, I said, do we hit down to make it go up? And I saw the hands go up, and I said, okay, I got a question for you. If I tee a driver up 6 inches high off the ground and I hit up on it, where does the ball go? It goes up. I says, now, wait a second. If I hit up to make it go up and I hit down to make it go up, how the hell do I make it go down? And that's when you can see all the hands start dropping. Yeah. We hit down to make it go down. That's another silly myth that should never, ever be carried on another day. By friction.
Yeah, that's which my we'll next question. Yeah, where do we get the other couple of degrees?
Contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the angle of attack, when the club is moving downward through impact, that downward travel via friction helps pull that launch angle down even lower. It helps that low dynamic loft to jerk that launch angle down. And one of my PGA Tour players, Sam Stevens.
Yeah, we played with him at the RSM in the practice round. Great kid. Super
talented. He has a phenomenon going on. Jason, he's the highest friction player I've ever taught. This kid knows how to get the blade a 64th of an inch closer to the ball than everybody else does.
he can launch it at 22, 23, 24, and the numbers look great. The numbers will be 10 down, 44 dynamic. This damn thing's launching 24 because he is so good at friction. He's so good at high quality contact.
Yeah.
But
so let me ask you, let me stop you one real quick there. So
yes.
what I've noticed, and we talk about slowing the ball down, the only other metric that I put up is smash factor. And we've seen, it's like 1 or even lower than 1
Less
on
than
these
1.
shots. Yeah, which we call the slow ball. But I see most of those numbers coming out when the player hits it kind of low toe, right? Is that what you're seeing?
It's a deflected hit. In other words,
right,
that
but it's not coming out of the
causes,
center of the face where it's coming out too fast. Is that fair?
right. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So
a toe shot, think about it. Like in a drive or a toe shot, that lot of gear effect going on. The bottom line is there's energy loss.
Yes.
There's energy loss. That's the key to the whole thing. You're 100% correct. Now I've got players that hit out of the center of the face and they can just rip it off all night long. But toe shots, absolutely, because a toe shot kills a little bit of that ball speed. You're 100% correct. So
gotcha. Okay.
First metric dynamic loss, 42, 45. Second metric launch angle sub 30, 26 to 29. That third metric is angle of attack. To do those things, you will start seeing that angle of attack start coming down. And I know a lot of my viewers out there have other measuring devices. There's another measuring device out there that's camera based. It will measure what I've seen steeper than TrackMan because they're measuring at different times. This camera-based machine, from what I understand, I want to make that caveat, is at first contact or maybe right at contact. TrackMan, as you know, is a little bit later in the arc.
It's more separation,
maximum compression.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little bit later. So if you'll notice, see my finger at first contact? Now watch this as I continue. See how my finger starts to shallow out as the arc gets longer? So in my experience, the camera-based system is slightly steeper. If TrackMan gives me 8 or 9, the camera will give me 9, 10, or 11.
Okay, interesting. But
when you move that low point more forward, and see, here's the thing that everybody in America needs to understand. This is a golf ball sitting on the ground. When I talk about steep, I'm not talking about steep gouging the ground. I'm talking about steep up here. And think about this, Jason. If my hand represents a given angle of attack, right? If the ball is sitting here, that's very shallow. Notice my hand is not changing, right? As I move the ball back, my hand isn't changing. Now the angle of attack has gotten steeper. If I move the ball back here, my hand isn't changing. The angle of attack now is dramatically steep. The low point is now way ahead of the ball. I'm not talking about steep into the earth.
Yeah, and I think that, and we'll talk about how do we get it out of the ground when we talk about mechanics, because I think that's where I think a lot of your stuff and my stuff probably get lost in translation. Like, oh, he's telling me to hit 10 down on it.
Or how about Jordan Spieth, who doesn't get it out of the ground?
And trust me, in the low country where I'm at, when we got super grainy into the grain approaches, I'm like, I don't care if you stick it in the floor, as long as it's after the ball. Right?
One of my players, Webb Simpson.
It's going to happen.
Webb Simpson is gifted. I mean, this guy can do things with a golf club that are unbelievable. And I was at Quail Hollow with him last year. And I said, Webb, I want the most difficult shot in North Carolina. Take me to it. And he takes me behind number 12 green at Quail Hollow. If you just tap the ground, just tap it, the grass goes, wow. I mean, it's just like, it's violent.
Yeah.
He hit 7 or 8 shots for me on camera, no retakes, no do-overs, no cherry picking. The club stuck in the ground every single shot, and I mean violent sticking. He almost holed 2 of them. And I'm talking little soft shots. I'm talking 20-yard shots. World-class technique. The club stuck every single time. Why? Because it was supposed to stick, Jason.
Right.
And I know you know that.
Yeah.
There are some lies. There are some surfaces where it's going to stick, period.
Yeah.
And if you try to stop it from sticking by backing up or flexing your wrists, that's when you hit a disaster shot.
Yeah, you hit a thin one. That's an interesting case right there because he's got the opposite of Viktor. He's got more rolling and opening of the face, right? and more probably radial
then
deviation and cupping. How does he manage his
and then he
short
goes
game?
ulnar and he pushes that right hand down, stands that shaft up into ulnar, closes that face, and just hits it beautifully.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if he let the center of mass of the club or the sweet spot drop behind his hands too much, he would
He'd be
suck.
dead in the water.
Yeah. Okay.
If
That's
he
cool.
got shallow, which is
Yeah.
when I came to him, he was told to get shallow.
Mm.
Yeah. If he got shallow, it's game over. It's game, set, match.
Gotcha.
Game, set, match.
Okay. So what's the next one? So you've now we got.
So we've got dynamic loft.
Yep.
We've got launch angle. We've got angle of attack.
Yep.
Spin rate is what it is. You know, from say 10 to 12 yards, you're going to see those spin rates up around 400 RPMs per yard. If you're knocking out 4,000 RPMs from a 12-yard carry, you're chipping the eyes out of it, and that's going to come from friction and spin loft, and we'll get to that in 1 second.
Yep.
And then the last one is swing plane. Every single one of my professional players, the VSP, the swing plane, which is, it's not the club, it's the center of the club head right there, from about knee high to impact. All of my professional players are in the 80 degrees, all of them. Very steep VSPs. Did I tell them to do it? No. But by putting their bodies where I want them, by teaching them how to move their bodies, the VSP steepening piece was a byproduct.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, I've had people come to me that couldn't chip it out of their own living room. VSP of 61, almost the lie angle of the club, because people have been told to be on the shaft plane. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. And an hour later, their VSP is 87. And they look at me and they're like, I don't think I can miss the ball. And I went, exactly.
So what's the lowest that you would kind of tolerate? Because I got guys that chip it pretty good at 70, 75.
Yes.
Is that it's okay?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's
I think
spectrum,
75
right?
is there is. Can you hit a great chip at 3 down? Yes. Can you hit a great chip at 15 down? Yes. So it's very, very difficult to pinpoint a number.
Yeah.
But I would say if my players were less than 75, I would be finding out why.
Gotcha.
Can you chip it great at less than 75? Of course you can.
Now, would you say that's more like in transition? I think we talked a little bit about Will when we were at RSM. His club will drop a little bit behind his hand sometimes at like 4 to 5 ish.
Yes.
So you're
can be a problem for people.
Yeah, you're trying to get the sweet spot kind of out in front of their hands a little bit more, coming down at 5 and 6.
Club head. Now watch right here. You see that football jersey in the background. Watch this. There's a little bit of a pitch out coming down.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of the shallow under. This right here, that little under, is it bad? I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Can it wreak havoc? Yes. But Justin Thomas, world class, has a little bit of an under pitch, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And Tiger Woods, from what I understand, doesn't have a big out pitch. He does not. He's pretty
Kinda
much
neutral. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty much neutral.
Right.
So, you know, I want people to understand, I'm not telling you what you have to do, what you must do, or what you cannot do. I'm simply telling you the math, the numbers, what I've measured, and I'm giving you things to think about.
Yeah. Love it. All
now,
right.
the number one topic of this whole damn thing is spin loft.
Right.
That's the king of the hill. And for everybody listening, you should know what spin loft is by now if you're an instructor, of course. And if not, spin loft is nothing but an angle. It's an angle. The top of the angle is dynamic loft. The bottom of the angle is your angle of attack. Now, I've already told you what the dynamic loft should be, didn't I? 45, give or take.
Yep.
Now, here's where it gets good. See, people think I pulled these numbers out of my ass. No, I didn't. Listen carefully. Well, first of all, I saw him with Brian Gay 12 years ago, as I've already told you. But we know, again, it's not an opinion. It's not made up. It's a measured fact. We know that about 55 degrees is a great place to be in the short game because it provides a nice slow ball. It provides a nice high spin rate. But here's the key to the whole thing, Jason. It provides a repetitive, repeatable spin rate. When that spin loft starts to get up to 60 or higher, you can hit some incredible shots, but when you get that spin loft that high, you start risking disaster, especially if anything like dirt, water, grass, any type of a medium gets in there, the spin rate can be catastrophically reduced. 55 keeps us in a great place. Well, remember, if the angle is 55 and the top is 45, what's the bottom?
10.
10. So this people
Even
think
a
that I
redneck
just
like
woke.
me can figure that one out.
People think that I just went on a 3-day bourbon bender and said, you know what? Let's go 10 down. Let's just go 10 down. No, I didn't. It's effing measured. It's not an opinion. There it is. Now, you might not like it. You might not agree with it. You might disagree with it. You might act like it's not real, but there it is. And it is. It's measured, Jason, and I know you know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm on board.
And think about this. You know, Victor's dynamic loft is 42, 43. You put 43 dynamic and 12 down. What do you got?
You got more than
55.
10. Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about this, people are like, Joe, why are you arguing? I'm like, who's arguing? I'm not arguing. I got a blue sweatshirt on. I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing these numbers, Jason, because they're measured. Right. Now, when people want to argue math and they want to argue measured, objective, factual data, I just sit back and I just kind of chuckle a little bit. I just chuckle. You're arguing math. You're not arguing with me. Right?
Right.
And also, you've heard me say this. If you have a theory, if you have a hypothesis of something, whatever that something is, and you go out into nature and you observe a phenomenon that directly contradicts your hypothesis, you've got two choices. You can just turn a blind eye and say, no, that's not real. I didn't see that. Or you could say, we got to go back to the drawing board. Yeah. I got to get this shit right. Well, if you tell people that steep is bad and causes digging and shaftling is bad and causes digging, if you tell people that and they get on my Instagram and they see 427,000 videos of people 10 and 12 down, shaftling of 15 to 20 degrees, hitting these world-class shots with no digging. You see where I'm going with this?
Case closed.
End of discussion, case closed.
Yeah.
You can either continue trying, you can keep trying to move the goalposts around, or you can say, guess what? I was wrong. Guess what? I was wrong. I was mistaken. And now moving forward, I am going to accept the measured factual data and I'm going to stop fighting it. Or you can say, screw that. I didn't see that. I didn't see that. So, I mean, at this point, Jason, honestly, it's comical because I'm almost 2 years into this by sticking this stuff out there.
Yeah.
And if you still are telling your students that steep is bad, shaftling is bad, if you're still telling people that after watching the countless, endless videos and data that I've put out there, you know what? Then God bless you. Just God bless you. Just keep on doing it then. There you go.
I love it. Beautiful.
It's measured, baby.
So is there any, so obviously shaftling, because this is kind of what I talk about, you know, you've covered the steep pieces, like they kind of create that sweet spot, kicking out, staying on the target line longer, upper body moving forward, down and left, shaftling. So let's say if we're hitting a higher shot where the wrist angles come out a little bit earlier, are we going to see typically a shallower angle of attack, would you say? Or are we just hitting those shots by opening the face, which I teach, like open the face at address to kind of build the loft in there, but still feeling the same? Or do you teach a different type of release to hit the high one?
All of the above. Here's what I would do. Let's say, for example, I've got a player and he's got the ball back. He's got the handle up and forward and he's ripping them in there at 28 launch, 45 dynamic at 10 down. Let's just say that. And he says, Joe, okay, I want to launch this ball at 32. I'm just going to simply move the ball a tick this way,
Okay.
maybe
Gotcha.
2 ticks, and say hit it. And I promise you, all things equal, now the launch is going to be 32. And he didn't have to tamper with things. And
Yeah.
for a tournament player, as you know, we don't want to have to start tampering with a bunch of stuff to hit different shots around the greens.
Sure.
And if you move the ball forward a tick or two, think about what you've done. You've taken away a touch of shaft lean, which does what to dynamic loft?
It's going to make it go up a touch.
A tick. But
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
something else that you've done. When you reduce shaft lean, all things equal, you also reduce angle of attack, because shaft lean is one of the components of angle
There
of
you go.
attack.
Yeah.
And that's why as that ball goes forward and as that shaft lean is reduced, angle of attack gets reduced. We get shallower, not because we tried to get shallow.
Yeah. Well, like that's
It's
the
built
two
in.
things that, that's the thing that I always tell my players. And I think where we have to explain it better, shallow can mean two things, like swing shape, right?
Yes.
Swinging to the right, swinging to the left. Yeah.
The plane can be
Yeah,
steep. The angle of attack can be steep.
Exactly. Yeah. And the shaft lean. And I always said those are the two big basic components. So it's like I always get, everybody's like, I sent you that video, my member today. I mean, he probably was swinging 6 to the right and, translating 2 feet behind the ball and wonder why he's hitting it fat. And
He's shallow, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, I'm sure he was. And he
Damn right he was.
Every time he hit a fat shot, he'd go, I'm too steep. I'm like, we got to change that mindset. So, down and left, I think is a good way to kind of explain that to a lot of players. The handle of the club going up and left. So talk a little bit about
Gently
the
up,
specifics, because you've covered the backswing pretty darn well in transition, and then how do they get it out of the ground without having a world-class player in front of you, or even a good player, and if you just say stand up and they can't do it, or they don't understand and they want more detail, talk about how you would teach that.
Okay, I will. The most difficult pattern that you're going to get, I'm going to tilt my camera here a little bit. The most difficult
you have to
pattern.
watch the YouTube portion of the guys, because this is about to get really good.
Absolutely. So if you see someone who they can't stand up, they're going down through impact.
Yeah, handle goes down for too long, club stays in the ground too long.
Right. Oftentimes it's going to be wrist angles, and watch what I mean. If that handle gets low at address like this, right?
Yeah.
If they keep that handle low through impact, you will see the right knee start to bend. You'll see the torso start to drop like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can't stand up. But if you tell them to do this, if you take the ball away, put them on a mat and say, watch this. I want you to make a little backswing, and I want you to push your thumbs downward. Watch this.
Okay,
you hear me hitting my floor?
Yeah.
You hear me hitting my floor? Yes, watch this. You notice me standing up, don't you?
So you're saying that, just again for the listeners that aren't watching, you're saying that going more into owner, which is pushing your thumbs down, is creating the need to stand up, right? So the player's reacting to the club as opposed to you telling them to do something with their body.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I you couldn't have said it better.
Okay.
When a player goes into owner deviation, let's do it this way. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Dr. Rob Neal was so generous with his data. He said, Joe, I've never measured a great player that did not move toward and or into ulnar and these little short shots coming down.
That's
never.
Gold right there.
That's never is the key word. So watch this. So
yeah.
Golf grip here, right? If I go into ulnar, watch this. So this radius got longer, didn't it?
Sure.
So when you watch a player who cannot stand up through impact, it's because the radius is not getting longer. They have no inspiration to get up out of the ground. If you watch Luke Donald, you can see I'm going to pull my sleeve up. Yeah. You can see Luke Donald going, turn my camera down here just a little bit. You can see Luke Donald going, bam, bam. You watch Viktor, it's bam.
Yeah.
Webb Simpson, it's bam, like that. Are they trying to do that? No. Viktor Hovland never once said, Joe, I'm going to go into massive owner on this shot. Webb Simpson
But
said
it is
never. He's never.
Yeah, we got to teach that to our average golfers, though. Clearly, right?
We do
to
because
do it.
what they will do, Jason, is they will keep again. Sorry, they will keep the handle. Dadgummit.
Too low.
They'll keep the handle down.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, Jason, people that have been told to swing to the left, be careful because the grip will stay down, low to the left.
Gotcha.
That trail knee starts to flex. They start to drop, and they will stick it in the ground.
Yeah, they hit it out of the hosel too.
And Webb Simpson has never said, "Hey, Joe, check out my owner."
So one of the things, because I've spent a ton of time, as you know, with James Ridyard, which I think is awesome in his information. He's probably been the biggest mentor to me, short game wise, in the last 10 years. And we talk a lot about controlling the arc height, right? So that's essentially what you're talking about.
It's the golden rule.
Right.
It's the golden rule.
So, when you start putting the pieces together, and what you're kind of showing there, with especially if the trail arm starts to extend, is now we're making that radius longer. So you've got to get that, something to get the club up, and if not, your club's going to be too long for too long without a better
That's right. Too
explanation.
long for too long.
Exactly. So, we talked a little bit about this when we were at RSM. Is like I like to keep that right elbow a little softer a lot of times to kind of help with that. Do you ever prescribe that to players, or
Sure.
you just let them? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
just
I
make
do.
sure I'm not off the reservation there.
No, over flexing the trail elbow in the backswing, and I do that.
No, I'm talking about in the downswing, just kind of keeping. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I know what you're talking about. What I'm saying is I will over flex my arm, and now that has to come out.
Right. Yeah.
And that can be a problem for players as well.
Yeah.
But when a player cannot stand up, it's because their brain is like, shit, I'm not going to let you stand up. You'll whiff it.
Yeah.
The radius has to get longer, and the way to do that is the ulnar deviation piece.
Yeah, and also they don't have enough shaft lean, which our average. I'm talking about the average club golfer, right? It's like, so they start flexing the wrist angles come out super early, and then they can't hit the ground. They hit it thin, so then they try to stay down even longer, and it's a complete mess.
Game, set, match.
Exactly. How do you? Are any keys to like teaching somebody that doesn't have enough shaft lean? Like, what do you think creates that, and how would you teach somebody to have more shaft lean?
Oh, that's a fun lesson. So once you get them at address, right? Once you get them at address where I got the top of the spine slightly forward, I've got the ball back, and I've got the handle forward, right? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll have them put a little left tilt on the backswing like that. And from this viewpoint, you'll notice that trail wrist is in a great spot.
Sure.
And a great cue is leave the trail wrist where it is.
Yeah.
And simply turn through the shot. Because if you're dealing with, say, a 20 handicapper, and that, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I posted a photograph a few days ago from Ping where it showed that great players are considerably steeper than terrible players. Ask yourself why. What did I tell you 10 minutes ago helps comprise angle of attack? Shaft lean.
Absolutely.
How much shaft lean does a 20 handicapper have?
None. Zero.
That's why he's a 20.
Yeah.
So a 20 at impact on a 5-iron looks like that.
Yes.
And on a pitch shot, he looks like that, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, if he's backing the shaft up literally, where is he going to get his angle of attack from?
Yeah, that's why they're all too shallow. Yeah.
That's why they're all too shallow. So when I hear people say, Joe, well, I think shallow is better for the average to poor golfer, and the data shows that the average to poor golfer is shallow, I would say, well, if the data shows they're shallow and they're terrible, let's do something else. Let's don't be terrible anymore. And secondly, as I said, the 20 handicapper doesn't have these wrist angles. Right. He's throwing the shaft out. That's the low point moving back. That's the major problem.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's
why the average golfer can't be steep. Jason, I made a remark over a year ago. And man, it was like the Antichrist. I said I've never measured anybody too steep. And I haven't, Jason. The steepest angle of attack that my TrackMan has ever measured is 17 down, and you know who hit the shot. Who was it?
Brian Gay.
Nope,
Or
Victor.
Victor. Okay.
Viktor
I had
Hovland
a
was
50-50
17
chance.
down. He was 17 down, hit a perfect shot. Now listen to what I'm saying to you. If 17 down is the steepest, that means by definition, everybody else is less steep. If 17 down didn't dig the ground, then that means steep doesn't dig the ground. And if 17 down produced a perfect shot, which it did, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I got a boatload of people that are 2 and 3 down that can't chip it out of their own bedroom when they come to me. And then you get them 12 down and they look at you like you're the second coming.
Yep.
But, you know, I need everybody out there to understand. Listen closely to this statement. Everybody listening, check this out. When you hear me talk about steep, I'm not talking about digging the ground. If you move the low point, this is the ball going this way. If you move the low point more forward like that, the angle of attack by definition becomes what? Steeper.
Steeper. Yeah.
Steeper. And the interaction with the earth never changed.
Right.
That's what everybody needs to understand. And remember, it's the bottom vector of the spin loft model. It's not an opinion.
Case closed. Here it is.
Period.
That's good stuff.
Like Kevin Kisner says, this ain't no hobby.
This ain't no hobby.
This ain't no hobby. This is
All right,
measured.
so I got one question. This will kind of lead us into some of the other stuff you're doing with your philanthropy, which I think is fantastic, and
Thank you.
your Patreon. Yeah, I mean, it should be commended because you're doing good work. We had a question from Murray Patterson. He's been on the show, friend from Scotland at Map Golf. So if you guys would follow him. He said, Joe, you are a fantastic communicator. I'm a longtime follower of your Patreon channel. What is your process for organizing and structuring your longer instructional videos? They always seem well thought out and never seem off the cuff. Thank you.
I'm going to give a truthful answer to it. And please don't take this as arrogance. Please don't, because I promise you that's not where this comes from. I've always been able, Jason, to say, okay, today I'm going to lecture on this topic. And I will walk outside onto my porch and fire up the camera and off I go. I've always been able to organize my thoughts constructively, critically, and have them chronologically. You know, for example, I went outside, I opened the door, I put the key in the car, I turned the key, I put the car in drive, and I drove to some people say, well, when I went to the store, actually I had to get in my car first. Then I went to the store, the story's all over the place.
Right.
I've always been good at just getting my thoughts A, B, C, D, E. I'll get a thought or I'll get a topic in my head. And oftentimes when I'm talking to the camera, it's off the cuff. It truly is. And as I said, I don't mean that to sound like I'm some kind of a savant. It's just I've always been able to do that. And I'm going to tell you guys, 95% of the time, you're looking at one take. Yeah, it's just, start talking, bam, here we go.
Yeah.
Because you notice my videos don't have breaks in them.
Right.
It's just,
I think, you say that, but you still have a process. And I think we're kind of similar in that way. I'm obviously a much better presenter now than we started. We always kind of struggle when we start to do anything new. And I used to write everything down and kind of structure it. Now I've done it so many times like you. It's like I formulated in my head 1,000 times, just like I did this podcast, right? I played this podcast 100 times because I was just so excited to do it. But it sounds like you're kind of the same way. You've thought about it. Plus, it's something that you're comfortable with. I mean, the information, if you know it, backwards and forwards, right? It's gonna flow. So I think give yourself a little bit of credit for some preparation. But did you ever? And this is more like personal development question. But did you ever take like any classes on public speaking or presenting, or because you have very few non-words, you don't cross over any of like the faux pas that they teach us in those classes. Right.
And well, as you can tell, I have a big mouth and I like to talk. So
Well, that doesn't mean you're
that
going to be concise and be able to present your topics. And obviously, one of the great debaters of the instruction world. I didn't know if you had anything that any instructional training from
No,
that.
I didn't. I didn't. I've
Okay.
got a couple of good friends that are in Hollywood. Maybe they can get me a part in a Lifetime movie or something. I can play the FedEx driver, the UPS driver. Um, but
Oh, that's
uh,
great.
no, I don't have any formal training. But I've just always been good at organizing my thoughts. I'm a good writer, and I think it's rare that we find somebody that's good at math, that's good at writing and literature. I've always been
Yeah,
able to
it's
write,
two different
write
parts of
good
your brain, right?
paragraphs. Yeah, write good paragraphs. But
No,
did you get that one,
absolutely.
Jason?
All right, so I did. Yeah, you just like froze up a little bit. There's the Wi-Fi a little glitchy there. No problem. We can edit all this stuff as we go forward. I think we've gotten all of the stuff that we want to get out. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? I mean, I've got personal development questions. I do actually. That's a horrible host right there. I just stepped right over the question. I've noticed a transformation a little bit in your physique, and
Yeah,
like you seem to like. I know how much weight have you lost. Like you look like you're in great shape. Talk a little bit about what you've been doing.
considerably.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you. I'm going to start filming some videos on this stuff, and I've had people ask me multiple times, Joe, talk to me about high blood pressure. Talk to me about these things. And I'm not a doctor. I would never portray myself to be one. And what I'm telling you is not medical advice. Don't think that. But I've been studying heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular disease, blah, 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 for many years. Many years. As a matter of fact, I've probably studied that more in the last 3 years than I have the golf swing. And I've learned a lot. And a lot of the things that we believe to be true, like hitting down to make the ball go up, ball starts on the path, things that are silly. I think we also believe those in our everyday life. And I'm going to put out some videos out there to talk about hypertension. And I'm going to leave people with one thing that I want you to research when you have time: metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance. Metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance. Hopefully, you'll look at both. And the math right now tells us that 70 to 80% of people are walking around right now with metabolic syndrome. It's an awful place to be. And without getting off on a tangent, metabolic syndrome, yes, is a syndrome that is characterized by hypertension, fat around the midsection, and insulin resistance. And without going into a long drawn out conversation that is not appropriate for this telecast, eating processed, refined foods, carbohydrates, sticking all of that food into your mouth for 30 and 40 years. Because as Americans, not only do we eat that mess, but we eat all the time as Americans. We'll wake up and have breakfast, and then at 10 o'clock we'll have the protein bar, and at noon we'll have lunch, and then at 2 o'clock we'll have the frappe or the latte or whatever you want to call it. Then we'll have the protein bar at 4 o'clock. Then we come home and we have dinner, and then we're sitting in front of the TV watching Law and Order. Here comes the popcorn and the sodas, or we're eating constantly.
Yeah.
So not only does the insulin go up as a response to eating food, specifically the carbohydrates. I mean, protein causes as well, but specifically carbohydrates. So the insulin's up here, but it never gets a chance to go down and stay down because we're always eating, Jason. We're always eating. And after about 30 years of stuffing this into your mouth, the next thing you know, we're 58 years old. We're on 3 different blood pressure medications. We're 60 pounds overweight. We have erectile dysfunction as men. Hypertension, as I just said. We're probably taking some type of a diabetes medication. And this insulin resistance metabolic syndrome, if it had been looked at 20 years previous down the line, maybe the outcome would have been dramatically different. And I'm just going to leave that is there right now. But
So
I'm going to put out some videos.
So
So
how
for me
much?
personally,
Yeah, for you personally, how much weight have you lost, and then what's your diet looking like?
well, at my top weight loss was about 52 pounds top, and I didn't do it by dieting. I didn't do it by eating 1,400 calories a day. I did it by staying away from processed refined carbohydrates. If it's in a box, I don't eat it. Period. And those of you that know me, you know I drink Coke Zero. I don't drink sugared sodas. I do not drink Gatorade. I do not drink sweet tea, because as much tea as I like to drink, can you imagine me drinking 8 glasses of sweet tea a day? I mean, how many calories is that, for crying out loud?
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I don't drink sugar. I don't drink sodas. Yeah, I don't eat candy bars. I don't eat that stuff. Now, is it true that because I don't eat that stuff, that's less calories going into my body? Of course, that's true. But it's not because I'm quote unquote dieting. My go-to breakfast is 5 scrambled eggs, 5 pieces of bacon, and a half an avocado. I love eating 2 or 3 Angus beef patties with avocado. I love stuff like that. I have a lot of supplements that I take every single day when I travel. They go with me, a lot of stuff. But, I just simply, I don't drink the sodas. I don't drink Gatorade. I don't drink sweet tea. I don't eat candy bars. I just don't.
So what about your fitness? What do you do exercise wise?
Unfortunately, I've had 3 back surgeries as of now. And up until about 2006, when things went really south, when the disc herniated that required surgery, you wouldn't recognize me. I mean, I was 15% body fat, playing volleyball, jumping around, hopping around. What people saw of me when I was at my heaviest, 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't because I'm just a lazy ass that sits around just eating shit. My life literally changed. One day I'm at Manhattan Beach playing volleyball, running around, having a big old time. The next day I can barely get out of bed and I can't put my socks and shoes on. And 3 surgeries later, I'll never be completely pain free ever. If I could run and jog pain free, I'd write a big old check right now. A big old check.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, back pain. As you guys know, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
But if I had never had the surgery, if that disc had never herniated, my life would be completely different. But I'm not trying to play a violin because nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, we're very blessed. I'm dealing with a knee injury right now that's keeping me from running, which I've done for 20 years. So we're dealing with that,
Sure.
but we'll get it figured out. Yeah.
But you touched on something as far as the animals are concerned. If you look at my Instagram, if you look at my Patreon, it's all designed to help an organization in Las Vegas called Hearts Alive Village. And Hearts Alive is ran by this beautiful, incredible woman. Her name is Christy Stevens. She's just she's an amazing human being. And she gives these animals everything she's got 7 days a week, 31 days a month. They don't get the federal funding. It's all donors. And I've been giving to Hearts Alive now for about 7 years. And a lot of my wealthy clients, I give them to give. Some of my tour players, instead of paying me a salary, I have them give it. And my Patreon channel that I charge $15 a month for, I am proud to say 2 things. I have never taken 1 red cent of that money. And number 2, we're pretty close to $270,000 that has been given to Hearts Alive. Over $250,000.
So such good work.
It means the world to me. And I'll be honest with you, Jason. I'll be honest with you. If there was no Hearts Alive, if there was no animal charities, I would not be on social media. My Instagram channel and all of the shit that I put up with and all of the bickering and all of the trolls, the reason that I stay in the game is because I need that to drive attention.
Sure.
To Hearts Alive, to Patreon. If there was no such thing as that, I would just have a website, Joseph Mayo Golf, and I'd be done with it. You wouldn't see me anymore. That's why I'm on no Facebook forums. I don't have a Facebook page anymore. That's why you don't see me on Golf WRX. That's why you don't see me on internet forums. That's why my Twitter handle, Trackman Maestro, was taken down years ago. The only reason that Instagram page exists, it's not to publicize me. It's to push attention toward donating and the Patreon channel.
That's fantastic. All right, so I got one more question everybody has to answer at the end of the pod, and then we'll close. I really appreciate your time. This has been awesome.
That's my
So
pleasure.
if you had a gigantic billboard and you had to get a message to the world, billions and billions of people, you could put a quote, you could put a picture, you could put a mantra on it. What would you put on that billboard and why?
Oh my Lord. Is it golf?
It can be both. You could have two billboards. Give me one for golf and then give me one for life and personal.
In golf, I would say spin loft is the only thing that matters.
A picture of the fingers.
It's
I
the
need
only
a
thing that
t-shirt, by the
matters.
way.
The only thing the golf ball gives a shit about is that. Everything else is just fluff. As far as life is concerned, this is a cliche. It is. Treat people like you want to be treated. If you actually do that, if you actually live that way, me included, we'd be a hell of a lot better off. We would be. And by the way, those jerseys that you see hanging up, I promise that was not planned. I had those jerseys out today because I'm going to take them and get them framed. This one right here, that one,
Yeah.
that is Rory McIlroy's actual costume that he was wearing in Tin Cup when he threw a fit. When he threw a fit and broke all of his clubs.
I was wondering what that was.
That is the actual outfit he was wearing.
Such a cool backdrop. Yeah, you guys are gonna have to watch the YouTube version for sure. But please go onto the portals and download and subscribe to this podcast. Joe, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I really appreciate. You're the best, my friend. And
it's my pleasure to do it.
I'm always here if you need anything from me, which I'm sure is nothing. But I'm one of your biggest fans.
You never catch up. I want to leave people with one quick thought. One quick thought.
Please.
All you golf instructors, I want you to listen closely to this. If you disagree with me, that's fine. If you agree with me, that's fine. Just ask questions. Stop believing things because you read it in a magazine or because somebody said it or even because I said it. Go out and test it. Think critically and start measuring this stuff. And a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of lecturing for 2 days up in Lexington, Kentucky with Larry Ward at his place, Keen Trace. And I told people, don't believe the stuff because I say it. Believe it because you've measured it.
There you go.
Believe it because you've tested it. And I promise you, if you get out there and you start measuring these short game shots, you will see things that will blow your mind. You'll be like, holy smokes, that guy was 12 degrees down and he didn't take a divot. You will see that. I promise.
What a way to close. Thank you so much, my man. I appreciate your time, and always Merry Christmas to you and the family.
Thank you, brother. You're always welcome in Nashville, Tennessee, whenever you're ready.
I'll be there. My son lives there now, so I'll be definitely down there with you and TJ.
It'll be my pleasure anytime, brother.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you.
You have a good night now.